Welcome, everyone. So, my name is Jagrut. A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for agreeing to be part of this experience and giving me an opportunity to present a story largely forgotten in history. Today, with the help and support of Mark, especially Waichi, Manuel, Caroline, Lucas, Josie, Susanna, and all others who opened the doors to the museum, literally and metaphorically, allowing me to work with artifacts from their South Asia collection. I also want to thank Swadish, the Indian street kitchen, for their specially curated preparations for the evening. Today, I'm going to help you discover an obscure figure from history, his obsession with immortality, and expeditions to far corners of the earth. It was towards the end of 17th century, or perhaps later. The date and time seem to be hazy in reference to his existence in Germany. A mysterious man named Narad had arrived in Europe. He was an elusive explorer, an itinerant artist, an alchemist, a naturalist, and a polymath. Some believe that Narad traverses between history and the future, but he is afraid of the future. Perhaps he is, like each one of us, afraid to face the fullness of time, terrified of the coming times. As they say, even gods perish at the end of time, only matter survives. But Narad is not like you and me. He has transformed his fear of the end of time into a joyous game, a perverse act of planting a dissonance in time. He enjoys anachronistic superiority, the power to manipulate time. The one who has already achieved immortality and travels within the interstices of time. He is the awakened one. Farangi is the term that was used in 17th century in Persian language, characterizing the people of Europe. Farang literally meant the Franks, and the land of the Franks was called Frangistan. Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor of India in 17th century, the one who commissioned Taj Mahal in memory of his wife Noor Jahan, felt he was ignorant of the geography of the world. Although Mughal title given to him, Shah Jahan literally meant the emperor of the world. Shah Jahan asked his Persian cartographer, Sadiq Isfahani, to prepare an encyclopedia of the world. He wanted to see how much of the world is inhabited. After 3 years of labor, Sadiq Isfahani created the map of the inhabited quarters, an encyclopedic work named Shahid-e-Sadiq that was drawn in Jaunpur in northern India in 1647. There are 30 pages in this manuscript folio, which is currently in the possession of the British Library in London. What you are seeing here on the table is the hand-drawn version inspired from Sadiq Isfahani's map that Narad must have used to reach Farangistan. As you will take away the plates, slowly you will begin to see the complete map and its structure. Narad's arrival in Europe is ridden with mysterious passages and voyages across the world. Many verbal accounts of Romani people traveling through Egypt and Azerbaijan mention the existence of a peculiarly strange traveler from the east who joined them and walked along during long journeys across deserts and oases. Some lost records illustrate his arrival with the Portuguese when the explorer Vasco da Gama first managed to cross the Indian Ocean and reach India, and during his several trips back and forth, Narad might have sneaked into one of the ships returning to Portugal. It is believed that he came with the Dutch on the port of Amsterdam in 17th century along with the fleet returning from the Dutch colonies in Mughal India. Narad dressed up as one of the Dutch missionary to get on board the sailing vessel, but later walked the streets of Amsterdam wearing a turban and believed to have visited the Hanseatic city of Hamburg sometime in 18th century. He was forever forgotten from history up until now. Narad acquired knowledge of the cosmos from Ayurvedic masters and yogis who meditated high in the mountains of Himalayas. After years of wandering and experimenting with different plant and fruit species, Narad developed a technique to grow a fruit that never spoils. Somfal, one of the mysterious objects of curiosity attributed to Narad. Some obscure ancient texts give detailed descriptions of a fruit that always remains in its full volume, even if 100 people are offered to eat one bite each. Some local legends in the deep forest of Khandwa in Madhya Pradesh in India talk of a strange golden fruit that regrows itself. They say by eating a single bite of this fruit, you can live for more than 300 years. So, Narad named these fruits as Somfal in Gujarati and Hindustani language. In English, Narad called it Somafruit, and in German, it may be now named from here on as Somafrucht. Historically, this fruit is the source of Somras, a sacred medicinal drink that came from deep beneath the surface of the earth. In Sanskrit language, this mythical event is called Samudra Manthan, or the great churning of the ocean. According to the Vedas, gods and demons both alike wished to drink Somras to attain immortality. In ancient scriptures, Som means both a plant and a god. A plant that is used to prepare Som, the juice for long life, while some texts mention the meaning of Som as the moon god. Here I must point out that this Som fruit resembles nothing like the fruits we eat today. There is a golden sheen on the surface of the fruit. Some have described seeing a brilliant glow from hanging fruits on a tree on full moon nights, while some have witnessed the soft flickering of the fruits like a firefly during lunar eclipses. Needless to say, these are extremely rare to find, and only rarest of people in the history have eaten a bite from the Soma fruit. One of the notable historical figures that are known to have had a bite from Soma fruit is the Count of Saint Germain, the immortal musician, alchemist, and European adventurer who is mysteriously seen at different intervals of history. Some claim he met significant figures like Voltaire, Casanova, and Mozart. Saint Germain visited India to learn spirituality at the suggestion of Narad. Many local legends in Germany during 17th century mention the uncanny meeting of a certain Johann Georg Faust with a mystical man from the East who presented him with fruits of immortality. It is also believed that Narad must have met with Paracelsus, another medical and alchemy expert from Basel in 16th century, and gave a botanical drawing of this mythical fruit to him. So this is the drawing by Narad. This is a copy of the botanical illustration of the Soma fruit attributed to Narad. The writing in Gujarati language mentioned the name of the fruit as Somafal. The date below mentions the year 1784, and in the corner is the classic signature of Narad that seems to be consistent in all his artifacts. Historical records cannot establish for certain that Narad imparted the complete knowledge of growing a fruit to anyone in Europe. However, my recent research points to a growing speculation that Narad created imitations of his mysterious Som fruit and gave it to aristocrats of Europe who desperately wanted to get hold of this fruit and claim longer lives. This was also a time of expeditions and adventures to far corners of the earth. European explorers returning from exotic locations brought with them souvenirs from the land they captured and looted. It is unknown, and perhaps we will never know how many or what kind of replicas they were or who were they given to. Part of the decolonial focus of this museum, they have put up the inventory documents of their collection on their website. As I was going through the objects out of curiosity from the South Asia collection, I came across a series of strange but elegant looking imitation fruits made of glazed ceramic and wood from India. There is a certain timelessness to them. After 3D scanning using photogrammetry, I made digital replicas of these immortalized fruits. The provenance research of these fruits is limited due to lack of historical information. However, we know so far that these imitation fruits were donated to the museum by 3 persons Adolf Friedrich, E. Wentz, and Frau Mark. According to the registry, Adolf Friedrich donated some of the fruits like the cashew, durian, jackfruit, a coconut, star fruit, and many more. It has not been possible to establish who this Adolf Friedrich was. The date of the donation in the registry is written as July the 19th, 1883, exactly 141 years ago. He could be the Adolf Friedrich V, the Grand Duke of Mecklenburg, who lived between 1848 to 1940. So it is highly likely that he might have been given these fruits as a gift or perhaps bought from someone and later donated to the museum. Another set of fruits like papaya, red bananas, lemons, custard apple, and jackfruit, and many more were donated to the museum in January 1913 by a certain Frau Mark. An entry in the museum registry suggests that Frau Mark could be a daughter or wife of Hermann Mark, who was a known goods dealer here in Hamburg. But another note in the inventory sheet lists that Hermann Mark's wife, in fact, was called Magdalene, who died long before 1913. And one of the artifacts from Frau Mark that was donated to the museum is in one of the display cases when you are going outside, like you will be able to see on the display case on the far corner here. It's a jackfruit. Interestingly, about 2 months after Adolf Friedrich donated his fruits, a person named E. Wentz also donated a set of mangoes to this museum on 27 September 1883. Looking deep into the old records, and the museum found that certain Eduard Wentz donated items to this museum, which was formerly the Stadtbibliothek of Hamburg, that hosted a modest collection of ethnological items. But when residence registry of Hamburg was checked, no person was found. No such person was found. For this project, I was taken into the deep corners of the museum archive, where these imitation fruits were kept in the dark metallic compartments for over a century. There is something magical about holding objects from the past. Instantly, there is a connection with the people who created them. It is as if we are holding lost time in our hands. With some strange happenstance, while walking in the labyrinthine depot of this museum, I felt an incessant urge to imagine Narad walking on the streets of Hamburg with his replicas of Somfal. Some lesser known scholars attributed the painting by Rembrandt, the world famous Dutch painter, of an Oriental man as a portrait of Narad, who must have been one of the models hired in Rembrandt's studio. It was during the later half of 16th century that Rembrandt painted several portraits of men in Oriental costumes. It is unknown to this date who these men were. It was part of the Dutch Golden Age that depicted men in Oriental costumes and called it a Trony painting. This image is a copy of the cyanotype photographic print that was made and signed by Narad in 1824. It is believed that Narad might have been born in the present-day western state of Gujarat in India, as his writings in Gujarati suggests. Well, nothing is for certain about Narad. You may not believe me. You may think this is all a farce. Everything is perhaps artificial, just a performance, merely an act. Well, actually, Narad is a simulation that runs by itself, self-aware, self-conscious. If only that were true. Had he been someone else, anyone else, he would have survived. I would have survived. Perhaps he would have survived by dying. Now his place in history is charged with precariousness. His memory is in a persistent battle with history. He is made to forget and made to remember at the same time. Narad leaves traces behind which only now are beginning to make sense in this world. Perhaps that's what he wanted. Perhaps that is part of the grander scheme of things, a game of hide and seek between the realities we perceive with time, constantly traversing back into the history and returning to the future. Alchemists of the world wanted to create gold. to eventually make the elixir of life. The genuine intent for an alchemist is to find a perfect cure for aging. How do we remain eternally youthful? Gold is such an element that do not react with most other elements. It survives the test of time. Gold is associated with eternity. In cosmos, gold is one of the basic elements found during the formation of solar systems. Gold is both equally natural and human-made. You need to extract gold from deep below the surface of the earth. This extraction is a destructive process. This map that Narad used to reach Farangistan is an imagination of the world from the eastern perspective looking westwards, made in 1647. It was made upside down in relation to north on top and south at the bottom. So this is the orientation. This is north, this is south. If I can show a little, like this is where Sri Lanka is, this is the peninsula of India, perhaps China, and this is Russia. Over there, the circular part is Andalusia and Europe, like now as we know it. All the way to the corner, right there. The top right from your side is Africa. So basically like following the complete line, and Middle East right in the center. What you see as a triangular, oh, maybe I can move a little. That's a Caspian Sea. This was a mythical island called Wak Wak Island, which was also like described in Bible and Quran as this mythical land where the trees bore fruits of women. Historian Irfan Habib talks about the inconclusiveness of the origin of this map. And I quote, "It is a pity that the atlas comes down to us through a manuscript whose scribe was not, to judge from his transcription of the text, a careful copyist. The colophon, or the emblem, contains no date, though it was probably transcribed during the 18th century. We can be sure then, though the maps as we have them cannot be free from copying errors, they are still sufficiently faithful for us to pronounce upon the quality of the original sheets." End of quote. Like a cartographer's hand making lines on a piece of paper, dividing nature into human territories, each golden line is Narad's trail to immortality. Perhaps he went walking along the Central Asia, perhaps he took the sea route to reach Farangistan. As I was drawing these lines following Narad's odyssey, making maps and territories across geological timelines, I feel I too am reclaiming, rescuing, redeeming lost time. With my obsession with Narad's traces, I too have wandered in search of evidences that Narad left behind. Walking along the same path as Narad's, I was wandering in the forests along the river Rhine near Mainz about 2 years ago. Suddenly, these golden winged seeds began to appear. I saw these shimmering with golden reflections scattered on the ground amongst 1,000 others, just as the sun rays fell on the ground, filtering through the leaves. I knew I was witnessing yet another trace of Narad's creation. Interestingly, these winged seeds are from the maple tree called Samara. It is a fruit, actually, a type of dry fruit that does not split open at maturity. Please. The key characteristic of this Samara fruit is the presence of that wing that enables the seed to be carried away from the parent plant, reducing the competition for resources such as light, water, and nutrients, and increasing the potential for colonization in new areas. Okay, let it be. Let the birds return to their nest. How can we put up with this hide and seek? How do we cope with the suffering of eternal life? Like a cockroach that survived the apocalypse, I am history. I am an exception to the rule, the aberration that becomes the norm. Think of yourself, just one aim, one obsession. Don't follow the discourse dating back to the ancient era. we have dealt enough in words. Wrap falsehood in the garb of truth. What will happen, a destiny, a preordained future. Maybe these are the things that I cannot prove to you. I can merely give you some questions to wonder. Narad is playing the game and I am the pawn. And I do not mind being exploited by history, or neither I am averse to the idea of exploitation of history. In a weird way, I already am a product of that historical exploitation. The language I speak, the clothes I wear, I am already corrupted. Stories, legends, and anecdotes float like smoke in the air, while history burns like fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I truly hope that you have been able to satisfy this intense hunger for truth. Thank you very much for listening.